with. But they just did a Chris Benoit episode, so that was garnishing a lot of Twitter talk, which I'm only aware of because I was listening to the Lord Steven Regal podcast, and for some reason people always like hound him. I say for some reason, but I actually know the reason, which is that he was laying it out like the night that the Chris Benoit shit happened.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be a pay-per-view. Chris no-showed it. The next night, Raw, they did the tribute shit, right? And like at the time, his side of the story is what people always think that he knows more, like he knew more before everybody else, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Because he was like close with Chris. He wrestled with Chris Benoit in like WCW. They were like in a car accident together at one point. So just people have this like understanding that they were like real tight, which he was like, we weren't. We were until he divorced like his first wife, like Nancy or whatever, and then he married this new woman, and like 3 years later, like the tragedy happened. And he was like, for those 3 years, he was like, my wife was close with his first wife. And after how that went, she didn't like Chris anymore. Chris wasn't allowed at my house. I wasn't allowed to really hang out with him. So like we saw each other at work and stuff. But like, Chris is also like, he doesn't use this word, but he was like, Chris is like a respectable guy. Like, so he understood what the situation was. There was no bad blood there, but like he just knew we weren't friends anymore, kind of a thing, Anyways, but that night that they did like the Raw thing that everybody points to as being like evidence that Lord Steven Regal knew more than everybody else at the time. He was talking about how he was like, Chris had always lived like in the same neighborhood as him until the divorce happened. After that, he moved about 6 miles from where William Regal lived. He was like, I didn't know exactly where, but I knew it was like 6 miles away, kind of a thing. And he was like, and I'm, just gonna be honest, that, I don't know if it sounds foolish or not, but he's like, but at the time, like legitimately what I thought was that maybe there's like a serial killer out there who hates wrestlers or something, or has some kind of beef. And he was like, and I just kept thinking, like, what if the person who did that to Chris and Chris's family, I live very close. Like, what if, what I mean? That kind of a thing. And he was like, so all day, he was like, I just call in my house and my family just to make sure that they were okay. Like, I had no idea what was going on and stuff like that. And he was like, it hadn't even crossed my mind, that it would be like a murder-suicide thing. He was like, until like I was about to go into the booth, the red light was on, it went off, and JBL came out. And we were talking for about a minute before I went into the booth. And he said to me, you don't think Chris has anything to do with this, do you? And he was like, and then I went into the booth to record. And he was like, so any amount of like, I might have known more is literally me just finally grappling with that concept of like, no, there's not some like, I'm putting a lot of words into his mouth because he's taking this very seriously and I'm being very goofy. Yeah. But he was like, no, there's not like some mass murderer out there killing ex-professional wrestlers or whatever. Like, Chris Benoit might have killed himself in his family. It's
head trauma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time I like recommend Dark Side of the Ring to someone, in the back of my head, I'm like, I may want to tell them to skip the Chris Benoit episode because it's the worst. Like every time you bring it up, I just think about them looking at his computer history and right before killing himself, looking up that Bible verse about a man bringing his son back to life. Yeah, and then the quickest way to snap your neck. Yeah. Ugh.
That's the worst 1-2 punch I've ever heard in any true crime anything.
Well, welcome back to Tag In, Tag Out, our wrestling podcast.
One of the last things I'll say, though, is, big respect to William Regal. If you have any inclination to listen to his podcast, please do. Super interesting guy from what I've listened to of the podcast so far. He's always respected as a wrestler for just being like a worker, like someone who just goes in and does his job well, kind of a thing. He had a couple of runs that were very successful for him, but he was never like, top of the card necessarily. Great comedic timing and whatnot, very funny guy. But his attitude towards all that kind of stuff is just really admirable. He always just talks about how he was like, I knew my place. It's nice that people, still like think of me as being such a good wrestler and whatnot. But he's like, but I just knew, I'm a professional in the sense that like this is my job, this is what I get paid for. You know what I mean? Like I get paid to wrestle, and I went out there and I did that kind of a thing. Like there's a clip where they talk about how at one point Vince McMahon, before he was famous to any degree, gave him this gimmick called the Man's Man, where he'd come out to like a theme song and like be wearing like a construction outfit with like a flannel cut off kind of a thing, and the whole gimmick was that he was like a man's man, which is very funny because it seems like such like a classic Americana blue collar caricature, and he was like a British guy who would go on to be known as like Lord Stephen Regal and all the pageantry of like Great Britain and all that kind of stuff. And there's a point where like the guy who co-hosts the podcast is like, what were you thinking when, Vince McMahon pitched that to you? And he goes, if I was of sound mind, and the other guy starts laughing really hard, and William Regal's like, you probably think I'm about to say, I would have told him he's a fucking idiot. But he's like, but no, if I was of a sound mind at that time, because for reference, he always struggled with drug addiction. He was like, if I was of sound mind, he was like, I would have made that work. That's what I was given, and I would have made that work.
That's very cool.
And he's like, I have the comedic chops. People still ask me about that entrance music. They still play it. And the guy who's co-hosting, he's like, oh yeah, he's like, I swear to God, I was listening to it last night. It's fucking late. And he's like, exactly. He's like, he's like, because a lot of people come into this business thinking like, oh, I'm a tough guy.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. He's like, you're not. That's not what professional wrestling is. You're not paying attention. You don't know what professional wrestling is.
Yeah.
He's like, you're going to be given something, and it's up to you whether or not you make it work. He's like, that's what I always tell young talent and stuff is like, if you go out and you're like, I don't want to be the man's man. I don't want to do this, that kind of thing. The audience is going to tell. You're not going to get over. He's like, but if you go out there and you own it and you try to make that work, he's like, I'm telling you 99% of the time it works.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing.
Unless you're just to the tits with drugs.
Oh, shit. But yeah, so was there a point to any of that? No, but mad respect, William Regal.
I don't know why you talking about that reminded me of Barry. Everything reminds me of Barry. I watched all of Barry recently. Great show. I think it might be my favorite show. But Henry Winkler plays his acting teacher. Henry Winkler, the best comedic timing I think of anybody on the planet.
I know, he's so good in this Arrested Development.
Oh, I love him so much. He like, there's a part in Barry where like everyone in the acting class has to like, perform a scene from their life. And Barry's girlfriend is doing one where her ex-husband beat her and she walked out on him.
Yeah.
And Barry's gonna do has to do one about like killing someone during the war. And he really doesn't want to do that. And he's in his girlfriend's scene. He's playing the ex-boyfriend. Mm-hmm. And he goes to Henry Winkler and he goes, I think I'm going to help her with hers. I'm going to put all my energy into that and not do my own scene, okay? And Henry Winkler's like, that's fine. That sounds great. I'm totally with it. And he goes, and was there any way you could, like, help me with this? Like, channel my story into this? And Henry Winkler goes, yeah, of course, absolutely. No matter what, Barry, I am here for you, whatever you need. As long as I am out of here in 7 minutes. And then I get hard cuts to him, like, telling him his emotional story and him being like, yeah, that's super fucked up, and giving him this, like, huge speech about how, like, you've done something bad, but that doesn't make you bad. And, that's all we're trying to do. And he tells him the story about how he's estranged from his son, but now he's got a relationship with his son again. And he's like, and we're all just trying to make up for what we've done and be a good person going on, okay? I believe in you. You've got this, all right? I'm going to be so late for my escape room.
Wow, what a topical thing you've brought up there.
Escape rooms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever been to one?
Yeah, and it sucked.
It does suck. No, I was talking about the whole idea of, like, I think that rings true to the movies we talked about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Another wrestling podcast that just started up recently is Mick Foley has one called Foley is Pod. Mm-hmm. I haven't listened to much of it. I don't know. I like Mick Foley a lot. I frequently refer to him as the...
Oh, it's so hot in here, Chris. I drank all this coffee. It's a huge mistake. Sorry, go on.
What are you trying to, like, one-up me from last week?
No, you had your shirt all the way off. I'm still self-conscious about my shoulders and my collar.
And how hairy they are?
Yeah, I mean, like, this is all extremely hairy.
But anyways, I frequently refer to him as, like, the Kevin Smith of wrestling. Uh-huh. He was talking about... And I was half listening. But I get the gist of the story. He was on some kind of show, and they were, like, 10 seconds to, like, airtime kind of a thing. And this lady that he was sitting next to, he was, like, promoting his book, I guess. And she was like, you look familiar. Like, what's your book about? And, like, with, like, 3 seconds to go, like, 3, 2 kind of a thing, he was like, oh, it was about the time I spent in prison. And then... And then the lights went on, and they, did the
I
pro
love Mick
wrestling
Foley.
thing.
Every time I hear Mick Foley talk, I'm like, this guy rips. I love him.
And then afterwards, I guess they had a conversation. I guess she was kind of a dancer or something like that, and she was talking about how whatever. And he was like, he's like, honestly, I think dancing might be, not as different to, like professional wrestling as you think it is, kind of thing. She's like, really, how so? And he went on this thing about how, like, he's like, well, because there are a lot of times in professional wrestling, where you're just thinking, like, you have to remind yourself, like, this is all I've ever wanted to do. Like, you have to remind yourself that thing, which ties back into something else William Regal was talking about. This one, I'm tossing it up. You can look at it positively, you can look at it negatively. But he was just talking about, again, he's just got that attitude of, like, taking things on the chin and stuff like that. And he talks about how he was like, I was like 14 or whatever, and I was trying to break into, like, the English wrestling scene, which was, like I said, primarily like shoot wrestling at, like, fairs, like, and, like, I guess the setup of it was something like where, like, there were, like, 3 matches and it was best 2 out of 3 kind of a thing, and, like, you basically won by pinfall or submission. And he was talking about, this is just a side note real quick, he was talking about, like, starting at WCW, and, like, when he was having the meeting with, like, all of the people who ran WCW, they were like, all right, what's your finish? And he was like, pinfall, submission. They were like, no, like a tombstone, like a, you got like a 619 kind of thing. Is like, I mean, I could do those things. And they're like, you mean you don't have a finish? And he was like, no. And then he was just talking about, like, that meeting where, like, he was just like, and they just kept hitting me with, like, well, can you do this? And I was like, well, yeah, I guess I could kind of do that. And he was like, and I spent a lot of, like, if you look at my early WCW career, I'm just ending matches with any move to see if it, like, if anybody gets a reaction. Because he's like, I didn't come from that world. I just came from the world where, like, you pinfall submission kind of thing. But anyways, he was talking about being, like, 14. He's talking about being 14 and, like, for lack of a better term, the promoter. But, like, again, it wasn't even, like, I don't even think he was wrestling for, like, any kind of association. And, like, again, I think it was a very, he was like, at the end of it, he's like, I think that guy had kind of taken a liking to me, and he knew that, like, this is what I wanted to do, kind of a thing. And he just gave me this little thing where he was like, all right, he was like, there's no money in this, you're gonna end up crippled, and it's a totally corrupt and crooked industry where you're gonna make no money. Are you still in? And he was like, yes, absolutely, yes, that kind of a thing. And the reason why I bring this up in reference to the Mick Foley thing, where he was talking about the whole, like, you have to remind yourself, like, this is all I've ever wanted, because William Regal talks about how he's like, I see these interviews with, like, these young guys who got into this problem or couldn't get over this, or the backstage politics that, or this, that, and the other. And he's like, and I definitely get it. He's like, but also there's a degree to which you might just not be cut out for professional wrestling. Like, I'm sorry, but that's what it is. It's long hours on the road. Yeah. It's injuries. It's backstage politics. He's like, and I knew that going in, that's why he told that story about talking to the whole thing about how it's a corrupt business. You're not going to make any money and you're going to end up crippled, And he's just kind of like, he's just got that attitude of, like, I had to accept all those things. I'm not saying it's great, but I'm just saying, like, if you can't take those kinds of things on the chin, like, it just might not be for you, kind of thing. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that Mick Foley quote, the Kevin Smith of wrestling, because I heard an interview with Kevin Smith, the Kevin Smith of Kevin Smith, like, giving somebody advice about, like, striking out on their own and doing something that they love. And he's like, and there's going to be times where things are really tough and you're not going to want to go ahead, but you just got to remind yourself, this is what you wanted. This is part of it. It's basically the same quote. He's like, you wanted this. Just always remember that. You wanted this, and this is part of it. So, speaking of Kevin Smith and movies, you want to talk about some movies? Yeah, sure. Eating Soup Alone is a podcast hosted by me, Christopher Crumley, and co-hosted by Nicholas Johnson. We try our best to ramble incoherently about a handful of movies at least once a week. Okay, I got a question for you. Okay, what's your question? And I don't care, whatever you want. What do you want to talk about first? Let's talk about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang first. Okay. And we're talking about Mick Foley, so I have to go bang bang. Bang bang. Here's mail. Mail time. Okay. A handful of years before Robert Downey Jr. was covered in metal and Val Kilmer was covered in chunky turquoise jewelry, There was a movie where these former/future superstars played just two guys solving crimes and cracking wise. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is a lot like a 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix. Is it perfect? No. Do all of its parts fit correctly? Absolutely not. Does it every once in a while make a loud grinding banging noise that makes you go, oh, this isn't going to age well? Yeah, of course it does. But you know what it does most of all? It just works. It's a nice little machine that rides a little rough, but fills your life with surprises, like plot twists or a cigarette you find between the seat or in the center console. You love it. 8.5 out of 10. It's not one of the best reading jobs I've done.
I was going to say, I take that again before you burp? Without burping in the middle of it?
I am burping.
You definitely held back a burp. You burped while talking. 2002 Grand Prix? That's what that sounded.
2002 Grand Prix. That reminded me, the other day I was just kind of laying on a balcony, and I felt my heart beating.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's so disgusting that I'm just like an organic machine. Like, I'm no different than a car. Like, with its tubes running metal to shit and stuff, and the engine and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my God. I did, for reference, no, it was not my first time smoking weed, but I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, a car is literally just us making a machine version of us, kind of. Like, the way we've wired it and shit like that is, like, exactly...
It's like what we were talking about with Terminator 2. Oh, he can't make anything that has chemicals and moving parts.
Yeah.
Bro, I got chemicals and moving parts.
It just reminds me of, like, people talk about, in space, when you're looking for life, like... people who believe in aliens always like to bring up the point where they're like, well, yeah, I mean, like, if you're looking for a cow, then you, like, look for grass and you look for water. Like, we don't even know, like, what other life could look like. It could not even look like us, or, like, in the sense that it might not need oxygen. It might not need water. It might not need these kinds of things and stuff like that. Let's just say sure.
Sure.
Yeah, it is also just interesting that, like, the same way that we'd be looking through life through the lens of the only thing we understand, which is us. In a sense, like, we made a car through the only lens that we understand, which is us, with, like, circuitry connecting the electrical components, like the brain, nerves to parts of the fucking car. And like I said, I already mentioned the oil and tubes thing. Anyways, it's gross. I just don't like to think about anything underneath my skin.
I get that, yeah.
I'm less grossed out by the idea that there's, like, millions of, like, microscopic whatever the fuck's on my skin.
Yeah, sometimes I think about my blood moving through my body. I just want to die.
Yeah.
I hate being a person. It's just so gross.
I hate the idea that I got ribs up in me, and there's a gallbladder in there that might need to be removed one day.
You know what's so fucked up about ribs?
Yeah.
They're there to protect your organs and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
Why they got the holes? This is the perfectly knife-shaped holes to get right at everything in there.
Also, why nothing on the tummy? There's a bunch of important stuff in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Or there are flaws with the human body.
Oh yeah, it's like a 2002 Grand Prix.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks.
I know it's not the only functionality, but it is very funny to think that, like, we literally evolved so that we couldn't stub our fingers. I mean, we can, but, like, you could. Yeah. Literally, the nail is there to protect us from the fact that we always get our fingers caught in shit. Just a little bit of extra, like, so it doesn't hurt as bad as it potentially could.
And it's also so you can pick stuff up.
Yeah.
Off the ground.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Do you think when you were like, we were like cavemen and stuff like that, it's just like chewing your nails? Is that, or do you think they had like primitive nail clipper?
I think they were just like out and about doing stuff so much they probably just naturally like grind down and get chipped, so they're not that long.
Interesting.
They were probably for sure longer than ours, but
yeah,
they weren't like
Sabretooth.
They weren't like that dude in the Guinness Book of World Records, you know, where it's the bag over the fingernails.
Yeah,
hate that guy.
Once they started getting long enough like that, you just have to knock it off, I guess, with like a chisel and a hammer, kind of do it, you know.
Guy with the long ones, you mean?
I don't know. I'm thinking of like a Flintstone style, like, you know, kind of spa situation where they would just chisel away your little nails.
They'd for sure have like a prehistoric bird or something like that they'd hold that would like bite off their fingernails.
Fair enough. I didn't go cartoonish enough.
Anyway, we'll watch Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we haven't watched the two movies together.
That's true.
We're busy boys. I said, all right, we'll watch these separately.
Mm-hmm. How was that? Was it weird?
It was fine. I said, we're going to watch Rocky. I'm going to go watch Rocky right now.
Yeah.
I texted you while you were on the road. And I came to the living room and was like, no, I want to watch something else. And I watched Kiss Kiss Bang Bang because I walked by it. And I love this movie.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, we watched In Bruges a couple days later. But that's not how this show usually goes. Chris, what's your experience with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
It's just one of those things you made me watch, kind of a thing. I'd seen The Nice Guys. I like The Nice Guys. I've seen Lethal Weapon. I like Lethal Weapon enough, for what it is and whatnot. And the sequels are also very funny. Diplomatic Immunity, all that kind of stuff. I've seen Iron Man 3. I probably saw Iron Man 3 first and didn't really know who Shane Black was.
Also, Last Action Hero we saw.
Oh, yeah, Last Action Hero. We already talked about that. Yeah. So, yeah, I've just seen it a couple times. That's about it,
Is that how you feel about it?
No, I do like this thing.
Okay.
But I was just thinking, like, not necessarily, like, trying to opine too much in that section necessarily.
Okay, I get you.
We'll get to the why I like it and stuff. Anyways, what year did this thing come out?
2005.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, it's 2005. Shane Black makes a movie. Robert Downey Jr. is in it. Val Kilmer's in it. Robert Downey Jr. is our main character. I like the opening a lot. It's definitely a lot of fun,
Chris,
What?
I don't know what to do with you.
Why?
We've been doing this for almost a year.
Yeah.
Every single time it goes,
Yeah.
Chris, what's your experience with X?
Yeah.
You go, well, here's my experience. And then you're supposed to go, what about you?
Didn't you just say?
No.
Oh, give me your experience.
I feel like we do this every single week. I go, oh, I don't know, Nick, how did you feel about it? Oh, thanks for asking, Chris. Anyway.
What's your experience?
I don't remember.
Yeah. I thought in the beginning you said I've seen this, whatever, yada, 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 like it.
Did I do that?
Yeah.
No. Well, all right.
That's why I opted not to say like it.
This is a bad show, I guess.
No, that's all getting mad at is.
I don't remember how it first came across. You know what it probably was? I probably saw something about it on Tumblr.
Oh, yeah?
I'm like, the ripe year of 2013, 2014.
Okay.
I was like, no, that looks funny. And then I just looked it up and watched some of it. And I had a friend at the time who I would watch a bunch of movies with. I was like, ooh, he's going to really like this. I was like, yo, come over. We got to watch this movie. And he came over and we watched it. And we're like, oh, this movie's great. And I showed it to like a bunch of people. Like I remember showing it to my dad. He's like, and my dad, I think, put it perfectly. He's like, well, like a nice little like a dark horse of a movie that like I've never seen or heard of. This movie's great.
Yeah.
I don't think this movie's like super obscure, but I just feel like not a lot of people have seen it, and it deserves more praise than it gets because I legitimately love this movie.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of both of these movies do, and I'll talk about it more when we talk about the second movie. But just that kind of thing where like it's funny because Shane Black literally made Die Hard, which is not Die Hard. Shane Black literally made Lethal Weapon, which is kind of one of those movies of that era. But this one, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, and like In Bruges kind of seem like not your dad's Lethal Weapon.
Kind of, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, what I love about this movie and The Nice Guys, which is absolutely like a spiritual sequel to this one, they're pretty much the same movie. It's just two likable actors who you'll watch do anything, just doing like a shitty like paperback mystery novel, like a Hardy Boys book or something like that. And it's got like all the cliches and stuff like that. And it's just a nice little movie that I enjoy stem to stern. And it's just great to watch at any time, and I never get tired of it. And it's just, every time I watch either of these movies, I'm like, this is just great. Like it almost, like I almost get the feeling that I get almost from Back to the Future. And we watch a lot of stuff, like after I watch like There Will Be Blood, I'm like, oh fuck, that was really good. I'm like, oh, I got a lot to think about and this and that. Both of these movies, it's like, no, these are just good movies. Like start to end, there's nothing like, there's not a lot of layers to it. I don't need to do a deep dive analysis on it before I talk about it on the show or anything like that. I'm like, it's just a good, well-made movie, and it just makes me happy.
Yeah, I will say, just real quick to get out of the way, we're not going to go on for a long time. Both of these movies have some aspects that didn't age very well. I like Val Kilmer as Gay Perry, which I'm going to refrain from referring to him as Gay Perry very much. But Perry, I definitely like, again, this is coming from a pretty privileged standpoint, but I like that it's a gay character that, in my opinion, strays pretty far from being too stereotypical or anything like that. It's just people's reaction to Perry often, which also, in my opinion, is kind of like one of those things that's like, this character would get a lot of that.
Yeah.
So that in that regard, it seems pretty accurate. Like for example, the first time you see Perry, the bald producer man, who I've seen in a lot of movies, I feel like, is giving him that whole talk about how he's like you see a naked dude and you think, I want to fuck that. He's like, my mind doesn't make that leap, kind of a thing. And again, I can just like, from where I'm sitting, I can imagine a lot of straight people like trying to have a weird
Yeah.
rationalizing homosexuality in their head conversation to gay people for some reason.
Yeah,
I don't know why they would think they would have to, but
like
I
that
can
conversation very much so feels like a guy for the first time is friends with a gay man
yeah.
because he's, he could pass as a straight guy.
Yeah.
And he doesn't make me uncomfortable, so I'm going to ask him a million questions
Yeah.
and just say all this things and have him be the representative for all gay people for me. And there's a lot of conversations with Perry in this movie like that. But except with Robert Downey Jr., when there's like quote unquote gay jokes between them, I think they're pretty tasteful. Like, I mean, not even tasteful because they're gay jokes, but they're like when they're talking in that closet or whatever, and he's like, yeah, and she went here and she did this. So what it means is, Robert Downey Jr. finishes his sentence and he points, he touches his nose and then points at his nose.
Yeah.
And then they're leaving and they're talking about it, and Robert Downey Jr. goes, oh, by the way, this thing, gayest thing you've ever done.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's nice. I mean, it's not nice, but it's not like the rest of like the gay panic in this movie and stuff like that.
Yeah, like don't quit your gay job is a funny little quip, I think. It's a day job.
I get it, yeah.
But anyways, yeah, like in this instance also I feel like he's supposed to be like coming off as the asshole. You know what I mean? It's not like Perry is necessarily at the butt of the joke. It's this guy who's doing this to Perry, putting him in this weird social situation that's supposed to look like a clown.
Oh, are you still gay? No, I'm knee deep in pussy. I just like the name so much I can't get rid of it.
And that's the other thing. I love Val Kilmer in this movie. I think he's the
so
funniest part by far. And like,
is.
that's that one kills me. I wrote down a couple that fucking kill me for sure. We'll get to it eventually. But just off the top of my head or whatever. No, never mind. We'll get to them when they get to them because they're again so contextual. I don't want to hop that far into the movie. But you've got the narrator. He's erratic. He's just like Robert Downey Jr. At the end, you find out because it seems like he's trying to pitch. Is this supposed to be like a movie he's making a pitch it, or is?
No, I think he's just narrating, just telling the story to a webcam or some shit like that. Yeah.
All right.
His name's Harry, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Robert Downey Jr. is at a nice LA party. I think the opening, in my opinion, the first scene you get is very funny. The whole him with trying to steal Christmas gifts for his like nephew or whatever, and they're robbing the thing. The guy gets shot. He wanders into,
An acting audition.
Very
Barry-esque.
Yeah, and he gets, he's gotten his partner presumably killed, and the script calls for that to be happening in the scene, and Robert Downey Jr. reacts very naturally, quote unquote. And
you know what I just thought about?
Huh?
Later when he tells him like he's not actually getting the part.
Yeah.
He goes, no, you're here because Colin Farrell wanted too much money.
That's
we
something I
watch a
wrote
Colin
down.
Farrell movie. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to jump ahead of you, but I just
No,
thought
it's
about
okay.
it.
So we'll tackle this real quick. The three things that I wrote down that connect these movies, just surface level things, both happen at Christmas time. Colin Farrell gets mentioned in this one and is also starring in the other one, and also they're both very, very, very orange and blue. Yeah, very orange.
Absolutely,
and blue. Yeah. Anyways, there's a lot of exposition that gets laid out in the early portion of the film. There's Harmony, who's Harry's love interest. This is also something I want to bring up real quick. There's so many things in like popular movies that like you always hear as like screenwriting advice that they say like never do this, like adaptation, like God help you if there's narration.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But Forrest Gump, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
I think what
Train
it is,
Spotting.
if there's narration, I think it works best in like a movie based off a book, like Train Spotting.
Yeah.
But like if the narration's there, I think it has to just be like this is something that you can't show.
Yeah.
And I think it has to add something to the movie, and not just like help the movie be lazier.
Yeah.
And I think in this and Forrest Gump and Train Spotting, it absolutely is for the better.
But the thing I was primarily bringing up is that they always say to like make your names or your characters distinctive from one another, and you have Harry, Perry, and Harmony. Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, Harmony, grew up in Robert Downey Jr.'s town. They were, he was like in love with her, and this is the second thing. Honestly, more egregious to perhaps, in my opinion, than the gay thing. Because let's get out of the way. Some of the gay stuff is egregious, like when Robert Downey Jr. is like plap, plap, plap after they kiss or whatever. But again, also like some of it can be kind of excused as like, okay, so yes, there are people who are homophobic in the world.
Yeah.
Our main character may be a little homophobic. It's a flawed character. that's a real portrayal. It's just like, you know, you can have the same argument about like, should characters in Tarantino movies say the N-word? Is it that great? No. Are there some people who do say the N-word that are white? Yes, there are. So it's, you know, whatever. But the thing that is the biggest bummer to me is Robert Downey Jr.'s like obvious like Madonna horror complex, like incel tendencies.
Yeah.
Because he lays it out that he's like, oh yeah, I was her best friend, her shoulder to cry on while she was fucking every asshole in town, kind of a thing. And already you're like, nope, you just hit every like classic neckbeard like checklist item. In terms of like the things people get made fun of for the whole like, oh, I'm just gonna be here while you go and fuck hot dudes, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, and I absolutely, I 100% agree. But I don't know, I think the way it's played in this movie is fine.
Yeah,
because he's not like mad about it. He's just like,
well, there's the one scene
with Chutney. Yes.
No, well, yeah, that is one, but I'm also thinking about the one where he goes on that crazy rant about how he's like, if a dude fucks 100 chicks, he's probably fine, but if there's a girl who's fucking 100 dudes, oh, I big guarantee that her uncle touched her in the past or something fucked up happened.
Oh yeah,
she's not right. It's like,
you're
like
right.
God grabbed the East Coast and shook, and all the nice girls stayed on the East Coast, and all the fucked up, damaged ones end up in LA.
Yeah,
it's like, whoa, that was egregious.
Egregious. Yeah,
they try to do the thing where like they did earlier with Perry and Baldman, where afterwards Harmony's like, whoever hates Harry, raise your hand right now, and everyone at the party hates him.
I love Perry comes in and he's like, obedient little bitches, huh? And someone throws a glass at him and he just ducks. It's so good.
Yeah. But yeah, that one, that was the one that was a little, that whole thing was a little more hard to stomach than like some of the characters being homophobic. Because like I said, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. What I was gonna say is like with the high school stuff and him like thinking back, he wasn't like, oh yeah, that bitch never saw me, this and that. He's just like, yeah, no, this is just what our relationship was. It didn't seem like he was doing the incel thing. He was very much so like, yeah, I was an incel, but like he's not mad about it. But then you're right. Later he goes on and like, oh, I fucked up girls and 100 guys, and that you're right. That's fucked.
Yeah.
So I take it back. You're correct.
We can bleep the name, but this character kind of reminds me a bit of.
I get that. Yeah, for sure. Bleep that. Bleep that. Bleep that.
Yeah. But anyways, so yeah, long story short, you get the exposition of like they knew each other back in the day. Robert Downey Jr. doesn't seem to notice at this point that they're at the same LA party until they're at the bar, kind of a thing. He just says that she reminds him of the girl from back home, kind of a thing.
I do love, if we're pointing out our favorite little jabs and jokes in this movie as it goes on. I love the beginning of this party where he's talking to a girl and she's like, yeah, I do some acting. What do you do? And he goes, oh, I'm retired. I invented dice as a kid.
Yeah, that's one that I wrote down. It reminds me of the... my father would make ridiculous claims like he invented the question mark.
So good. Hey, like, I don't know why that works, but for some reason, Robert Downey Jr. in 2005 being, I don't know what, like close to 40, I'd be like, were dice invented like 30, 40 years ago?
But anyways, yeah, and, you know, here's another gay thing that, like, you know, because RDJ is explaining to Val Kilmer that whole situation with the Harmony thing. He's like, you know, it's the one that got away. And he's like, yep, I know that. Yeah, Bill Goldberg. I don't remember the name.
Yeah.
And he's like, Bill, and that's weird when he does the thing. But then after, when he's like, I don't know, I feel like you might still have a shot, man. That's nice. That's sweet. Yeah. I like that part. That second half was okay.
But yeah, then he goes to the bar after Harmony. Oh, I love when he's like, gives that monologue to that dude where he's like, you better be her doctor. Don't think, just walk away. Yeah. Or I'll kick your ass or something like that. He's like, what? He's just like, make a choice, walk away, or let's go outside and dance because it's past my bedtime.
Yeah, Harmony is unconscious drunk and a guy is feeling her up a little bit.
And I love the hard cut to him getting the shit punched out of him on the front lawn.
Also, on top of that, even more, I like later when they're trying to get their keys from valet and she's like, he's like, hey, did you see a blonde girl go by? She's like, oh, you mean the one with the guy that beat the fuck out of you earlier?
Yeah, you mean the guy that beat the fuck out of you earlier? No. Have a better night.
Yeah. And then, I love that she says, have a better night.
Yeah, they go to the bar. He is hitting on Harmony. Her friend comes by and is like, hey, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, all right, I'll see you. And she's like, Harry Lockhart, are you going to recognize me or what? And he's like, oh my gosh. And then they talk for a while.
We also glazed over some of the exposition I was trying to lay out is the Johnny Gossamer novels.
Yes.
Now, she loved them. And Harmony had a sister whose dad was incest raping her.
Very eloquently put, yeah.
Yeah.
You really danced around that one.
Anyways, and there's a whole thing there like that gets explained later that we'll just get out of the way now, where like Harmony had like tried to console her by saying that that's not her real dad, so it's not real incest, because her real dad was like the actor who played Johnny Gossamer that came through town, at some point to make the Johnny Gossamer movie, yada yada yada. Real quick, should we just maybe even like try to lay out all those pieces instead of like a noir film's so hard to talk about sometimes. Yeah. Long story short, RDJ and Val Kilmer are working the case. We'll talk about this as it happens. But the backbone of the whole thing is that they think what's going on is that like she came here to look for her dad.
Yes.
They're pretty sure that she hired Perry because she... there's like the whole thing with the you help me out, the two sisters.
It starts that there's two cases, just like the Johnny Gossamer books, one, which
is something I love. I do love it reminds me of adaptation, where like the thing that the characters are talking about is like how the movie's actually playing out.
One is they accidentally see this murder happen, and then the sister killed herself,
right?
And as it goes on, they find out that the sister is the one who hired them to go stake out that house where they see the murder. So
they think they're being set up the whole time, right? Or no?
Yes and no. No, they don't.
No.
They think they find out that the people who threw that body in the river were at the party. That's how they know them, because the big bad guy is the what is he? He's the actor who played Johnny Gossamer. And he has a relationship with his daughter that's very tense, and she's a born-again Christian after she tries to sue him after mom died, and now she's back and she's a born-again Christian, and they realize, oh, he's got a fake daughter, and the fake daughter is Harmony's sister, and so he had her killed so she wouldn't tell anybody. And I do like at the end of the movie they're like, no, that's not what happened. Sister wasn't even really involved in this.
It was just that pink-haired girl that was later, like, she was the fake sister, and they killed her, yada yada yada. Anyways, so there's all this going on.
I feel like we did a horrible job explaining
that. We did a really bad job. We'll try to maybe piece it together as we go through. Long story short, RDJ is hanging out with Val Kilmer because he's getting detective lessons for the role he's about to play. They go out, and they're supposed to be staking out this cabin because this woman named Ames, last name Ames, says that her husband's like cheating on her or something like that. Instead, they find a couple of guys throwing a body into the trunk. They don't know that, though. They hear like the banging, and I like that RDJ thing where he's like, "What's wrong with her car? With his car?" And Val Kilmer goes, "I'm not a mechanic." But anyways, they go to the lake. Those people shoot the car off a ledge into the thing. Val Kilmer goes down there because at first RDJ's like, "What if there's a person in there?" So he's trying to be like a hero, and Val Kilmer goes down there and he shoots the trunk open, and there's a body in there, and they find the body, kind of a thing, and. Val Kilmer's like, we gotta get the fuck out of here. We gotta get away from the body. Let's put it back in the lake. And RDJ's like, well, yeah, that's great, but you also shot it in the fucking head.
No, he was like, he pulls her out and he's like, oh, is she okay? He goes, no, she's just resting her eyes for a second. He's like, oh, really? He goes, no, her fucking neck is broken. And they go on about it. He's like, we gotta get out of here. He's like, no, we have to call the cops. He's like, listen, man, I got priors. He's like, no, we need to call the cops. He goes, what, do you think they're gonna believe that they broke her neck after you shot her in the head? And he's like, oh, fuck. And he's like, okay, we got to get out of here. What?
I have the gun, quote, ready to go, so don't bring that up.
That's what I was going to bring up. And he's like, yeah, we got to get out of here. And he's like, okay, yeah.
And fucking RTJ takes the gun that he shot that girl in the head with or whatever and throws it in the lake because he thinks he's getting rid of evidence. And like Val Kilmer's all winded and shit, and he's getting up. And he's like, all right, now where's my gun? And he's like, oh, your gun, I threw it in the lake. Don't worry about it. I already took care of it. He's like, you threw it in the lake? And he was like, my $2,000 ceramic Vector my mother got me as a special gift. You threw it in the lake next to the car? What happens when they drag the lake? You think they'll find my pistol? And he's kind of like going off and stuff like that. And RDJ's like, calm down. He's like, no, okay, all right. I was being a little nonplussed or whatever. He's like, hey, what's that? Is that a clue on the floor? And then RDJ's like holding the box and he hits RDJ in the face. It's great.
It's great.
It's one of my favorite Val Kilmer scenes. I love the. Oh, is that a clue?
Yeah. On the briefcase, and he hits him with it. This whole scene, Val Kilmer is just at a 10. He's like, God, you look up the word dictionary. Look up the word dictionary. Look at the word idiot in the dictionary. You know what you'll find? A picture of me. No, the definition for the word idiot, which you fucking are.
Yeah.
It's so good.
So anyways, from there, God damn it, I love when they're in the car and they're drying off with towels, and RDJ was like, this towel's soaking wet, can I get another towel? He's like, that towel's not for you, it's for the seat. He's like, no, it's not, you used your feet to dry it off, and then you gave it to me.
Yeah.
When you used it to dry off your shoes, I mean.
You use it to dry off your shoes, and then he gives it to me. He's like, no, it's for the seat. Stop dripping.
Yeah. Anyways, I think by the time they get back, that's when they get the call that Harmony has killed herself.
I'm sorry, just before he drops him off, we missed in the bar where Robert Downey Jr. is like, oh, I feel badly. And she's like, bad. He's like, what? She goes, badly implies that the mechanism you used to feel
an adverb.
is working bad. And then when Perry's like, get out of here, sleep badly. And he goes, sleep bad. He goes, what? He's like, it's sleep bad because badly implies that the mechanism used for sleep.
He's like, no, it's badly. It's an advert. Who taught you grammar?
He's like, all right, I'll call you tomorrow. He's like, die. And he leaves.
Wait, doesn't he get the call?
He gets the call because he leaves his phone.
Yeah, he leaves his cell phone. Right. So anyways, RDJ does whatever. I just know it's like almost a hard cut to Harmony, like being at the scene kind of a thing, isn't it? And they're like,
no, he gets the call because
sister.
they think Harmony's dead.
Yeah.
And then it hard cuts to her at his hotel room door like minutes later.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells him about the sister and stuff like that.
And he lies about being a detective.
Yeah, tells her to help her. And he's like, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. And she's leaving, and he goes into the bathroom to take a piss. He's popping a bunch of pills and stuff like that. And he's like, yeah, just take whatever you want. And he looks over in the shower, and the girl that they found is in his shower.
Yeah.
And he pisses on it.
Yes, the pissing on it is very funny. She like leaves. Val Kilmer's 4 minutes away, and I love this scene. I love where he's like, they're framing you. There's definitely a gun. Go find the gun. All that stuff's great. Finds the gun, wraps the body up. They throw it off the rooftop. It lands on the side of the dumpster. He's like, hilarious.
He's on the phone. He's like, Perry. He's like, what? He's like, I peed on it. He's like, what? He goes, I peed on it. He's like, you peed on the body? He's like, yeah. Can they do like DNS? He's like, why in the bubonic fuck did you pee on the body?
Anyways, they're driving around with this corpse. There's also the scene where, yes, they kiss to get the cops off their tail or whatever, because the cops roll by with flashlights.
I love when they throw the body off the roof and it hits the side of the dumpster and lands next to it.
Then from there, they...
What do they do with the body? I don't remember. They wrap it in a rug. Harmony finds them. They tell her what's happening.
Yeah. I don't remember what they do with
I don't remember. They get rid of the body.
Yeah.
And then it's the next day at a diner. Harry is talking to Harmony about her case.
Mm-hmm.
And then they see something on the news.
Yeah.
Oh, they see on the news that the body of Dabney Coleman, is that his name? The actor who played Johnny Gosper?
Yeah.
His daughter was found dead, and it's the girl that they found.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens from there?
God damn. I don't know. There's the... When does he lose his finger? He loses his finger pretty soon here.
He loses his finger when he goes to see Harmony, and she finds out that he's not a detective.
Oh, yeah. We probably get the scene where Val Kilmer's like, hey, Colin Farrell, yada,
exactly,
yada, yada.
yeah.
They're on
And
a
I
rooftop,
told Harmony,
and he's like, get the fuck out of here. He's like, you didn't get that part. Yada, yada, yada. We were using it just to scare Colin Farrell. I told Harmony you're not a fucking detective. Then he goes to see Harmony, loses his finger. They rush over to the hospital. He's high as hell on drugs.
He goes to the airport.
Yeah.
Sees Flicka from the bar earlier, gets Harmony's number because he has to talk to her, and when he does that, he like remembers something or like figures out part of the mystery. I can't remember what it is. Goes there, loses
there are
his
some
finger.
clues here and there. It's a noir film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, that he's high as hell at the bar. Does the incel monologue.
Yeah, because they go to that bar or whatever because
Harmony's working.
Yeah, Harmony's working. We already talked about the whole who hates Harmony. Yeah.
She finds the Johnny Gossamer movie. They watch it. They realize that guy's the actor from it.
Yeah.
And then
they piece it together that she must have come here
looking for
her dad, and then he got rid of her or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Perry goes, all right, I have to do a job real quick. I have to go follow somebody.
Yeah.
I'll be back. He goes to do that.
RDJ bumps into the two goons.
Yes.
Which is also pretty funny to me.
Yes, that whole scene's great.
Yeah.
Harlan Dexter is his name.
Okay. Do you remember that conversation they had?
Not really. There's like some like shit here and there where they're like just threatening him. And
yeah, they just give him some vague threats. They hurt his finger, which has been, stitched up.
Yes.
Cut to Harmony and RDJ going to the hospital, get the finger fixed again. They end up following the goons on accident.
Dabney Coleman is an actor who is in no movies I have ever seen. I don't know where I pulled that name from.
Okay. Anyways, So she ends up following the goons instead of taking him to the hospital. He passed out in the back of the car. She stops those two guys from like assassinating him
because they're going to kill Perry because the girl he's following is a setup.
Yeah, loose end. The girl with the pink hair, who is the actual replicant, for lack of a better term, ends up taking the fucking car
that Robert Downey Jr.
is sleeping in. They end up back at her place. RDJ kind of wakes up, stumbles into the house. He's asking if anybody's there. Nobody's there. Then he hears some rustling. He hides under the bed. One of the goons from earlier is there talking with her, and he, is talking to her about like how like yeah, Mr. Dexter, whatever, yada yada yada. You're never gonna have to go through this again. She's like, who's so fucked up? I watched a guy die. I don't think I can do this anymore. Then she gets shot.
Yeah.
RDJ and her lock eyes. Underneath the bed as she's like dying on the floor. He's holding back tears and trying to tell her to shush because she keeps trying to mouth like, who the fuck are you, kind of a thing. Anyways, I absolutely love though, as like the henchman is getting bags to like grab the body, RDJ is like in a daze, like he's like leaning on the bed now instead of being underneath it, kind of a thing. Yeah. And then he's just like, well, if it isn't the tough guy, what in the fuck are you doing here, kind of a thing. And then RDJ shoots the guy, yada yada yada. Tries to put his finger on ice, gets a call from Perry. Dog eats the finger, kind of a thing. He tells Perry like, hey, I just woke up in this girl's house, whatever. She just got shot by the henchman. I shot one of the henchmen, or whatever.
I've never killed a guy before. Bah.
Yeah. And he's like, get the fuck out of there. He's like, I can't. There's like fingerprints on the dog, kind of a thing. And he's like, there are no fingerprints on the dog, kind of a thing. He's like,
they're not going to dust the dog.
Yeah, he's got my finger, kind of a thing. And then the dog swallows the finger. He's like, oh no, I think that solved itself.
Yeah.
Anyways, somehow they link back up.
Yeah. I don't know how. I don't remember what happens immediately after this.
Anyways, there's some situation where like earlier we saw RDJ cover up the lady's lower half when they found the lady in the lake
because she wasn't wearing underwear.
When they're back at the crib, him and Harmony, they're like gonna go to bed after they've had some drinks or whatever. I think Val Kilmer maybe even told them like, hey, we gotta drop this is all crazy, like I talked to my police connection and like whatever the fuck. Anyways, and as RDJ is like about to go to bed, kind of a thing, he's like, I just thought of something. He was like, that girl we found in the lake, she wasn't wearing any underwear. Anyways, flash forward, Harmony pieces that together seemingly, because she leaves a voicemail on Perry's phone, and Perry shows up and he's like, Harmony's in trouble, gotta go save her. What the fuck did you tell her earlier? That kind of a thing, like that might have set her off.
I do love when earlier he's telling Perry about her. He's like, yeah, she did have one exception though. She said she wouldn't have sex with my best friend Chet Chutney.
Yeah.
And then when they're about to sleep together, she's like, oh, I gotta admit something to you though. And then it hard cuts to him kicking her out. He's like, Chet Chutney, really? Yeah. It's great. And then that's when she leaves and ends up calling Perry.
Yeah. So anyways, they're like on their way to get her from where they think she's in turmoil, because Perry has pieced together the no underwear thing must have meant that she was like institutionalized. Yes. Like that's the only thing that would like explain how she went from like suing her dad for mom's money to like being a born again Christian and whatnot. Then they bump into kind of an orderly. There's that great Val Kilmer bit where they're being led by gunpoint, and he's like, yeah, in movies, yada yada yada, whatever, it looks this way, but in real life, pros always do it about 5 feet away so that the guy doesn't take the gun away from you, stupid fuck, or whatever, that kind of thing. And he's got the gun on the guy now.
Yeah, and I love when, like, before that happens, like, Val Kilmer says something to the orderly, and he hits Robert Downey Jr. with the gun. He's like, I didn't even say it. And then when he gets the gun and they turn around, Robert Downey Jr. hits him with the gun. He's like, see, I just hit you for no reason. It sucks, doesn't it? Again, the scene, Val Kilmer, 10 out of 10. He's just killing it the entire time.
Yeah, they're like interrogating the guy. Val Kilmer's correcting him on his interrogation skills, and this is another one of my favorite Val Kilmer lines where he's like, I want you to picture a bullet in your head. And he's like, that's ambiguous. And he's like, no, it's fucking not, or whatever. And Robert Downey Jr. is like, no, it actually kind of is. Because like, are you telling him to like picture a bullet in his head, or are you telling him that he should picture a bullet entering his head? And he's like, shut the fuck up, kind of thing. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, long story short, Robert Downey Jr. shoots a guy in the head. He does the Russian roulette.
Yeah, he's just like, puts a bullet in, flips it. He's like, where? It's the girl, and it's the first one has the bullet in it.
And he's like, what? There's like a 1 in 8 chance. He's like, who the fuck taught you math?
No, I love it. He's like, you put a live round in that gun? He's like, yeah, I thought there was like a whatever % chance. He's like, who taught you math?
Yeah.
And then Harmony calls him, and Perry's talking to her on the phone, and Robert Downey Jr. sitting there. He's like, well, 4 times 6.
Stop multiplying.
He's like, no, I don't know what's going on here. Stop multiplying. Yeah. We need to get it. God, Val. I watched the Val Kilmer documentary he put out a while ago.
Yeah.
It is kind of a bummer. It's a bummer to see what Val Kilmer's going through now.
Yeah.
And all the chunky turquoise jewelry he's wearing. But it's good, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've always liked Val. Tombstone's great as well.
Yeah.
But, yes. Then our climax happens because they're trying to hide that orderly's body, and when they turn around, there's a couple of actual henchmen that have them at gunpoint now.
Yeah.
And all kinds of hijinks ensue from here. Harmony like steals the van that has the actual body in the back before it can get cremated, because they're trying to cremate it so that it can hide the evidence or whatever.
Yeah.
And then she's supposed to be coming and picking up RDJ and Val Kilmer after they've escaped from what happens in every Johnny Gossamer novel, the torture, because Dexter shows up and hooks up a fucking car battery or whatever to RDJ's balls, and there's that guy who's whatever. And there's also the F-word gun thing, which a lot of people are 50-50 on, whatever. But anyways, yeah, then there's the big set piece where like the fucking casket ends up hanging off of a exit sign on the highway, and Dexter shows up and he's trying to run over RDJ, and RDJ and Val Kilmer have already been shot, and Harmony this and that and yada yada yada.
Robert Downey Jr. just
shoots a million
scopes
people,
like 5 guys in a row.
Like a million peeps.
Like, I'm pretty sure his eyes are closed and he's like bang, bang, bang.
Yeah. Eventually, we end with the wrap up where everybody's still alive, and you get some funny...
I do love when he gets to Harmony, and she's like, "Oh, you've been shot." He's like, "Oh no, check this out." He pulls out the book.
Oh yeah,
and she's like, "Oh, cool!" And she takes it and she puts her finger through the book.
The book.
And she puts her finger through the book and looks at him, and he's bleeding. He's like, "Oh, I guess not."
Yeah, that is really funny, and I think the movie has a lot of little things like that that are like,
it's great.
And that's one of my favorites for sure, is the book thing. Anyways, it wraps up with Val Kilmer coming out and saying like, "Yeah, we all lived." But yes, none of that was true. What actually happened is, Harmony's sister came here, saw them incest fucking, and she got killed because Dexter didn't want that to get out.
He was having sex with the double of his daughter, and she thought it was the real daughter.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
like, old dad and new dad, yeah.
Yeah, and she couldn't handle old dad and new dad kind of a thing. And then there's another ending where it talks about how they all went back to Indiana for the wedding, and then even cut more to another scene where Val Kilmer is smacking up dad who incest raped
How do you
Harmony's
feel
daughter.
about this scene?
I like it.
It's just weird. It just feels out of place for this movie.
Yeah, it does.
But I like watching it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely like that. He's like a big, tough man beating up an old defenseless man. And he's like, yeah, that's right. Big, tough guy. Yeah.
And I love when he goes in there. He's like, "Do I know you?" And he goes, "No. I wanted to go to the zoo, but it was closed, so I thought I'd come here to see an animal." Yeah. Like, ooh, get him.
Yeah.
I love when it cuts to Robert Downey Jr. in front of the computer or whatever, wrapping it up. He's like, "Oh, that's pretty tough back there, right? With the old guy."
Yeah. But anyways, so that was probably the most chaotic mess of a description of a film that we've ever done. Strengths of the movie. I'm just gonna lay it out. Love the neo-noir plot where it's like intriguing, like something like a classic kind of Double Indemnity or like a North by Northwest, but it's just got some modern twists and subversions, and pokes a bit of fun. Satire could be thrown out there as a label. I love Val Kilmer and RDJ. I like their relationship. Harmony's great. And all around, yeah, it's just a blast. It's very fun. It's interesting, and I love that thing where like the novel is exactly how things plan out, and I love that it ends on that note of him saying, I can't remember exactly how Robert Downey Jr. put it, but he's like, yes, it was like a book until it wasn't, but while it wasn't that great, that kind of thing. In terms of cons, yeah, this came out in 2005. There's some sussy shit in there for sure. The gay stuff, the incel stuff, just a couple things that wouldn't really fly today and are also, sometimes hard to stomach. Then our next movie has a couple of those too. Overall, I think I'm putting it in like I'm probably going to put both these movies in the bang bang category. They're both getting probably B's, I think.
Okay.
Give them both B's, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, love this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm basically just going to say everything you said again, but I think this movie, its entire strength is just how fun and watchable Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer are together.
Yeah, they're carrying it on their back for sure.
Yeah, and like you said, just like the modern noir film just works. It gets me. It's not like the most complex mystery, even though it kind of is. Like every time I watch this movie, another part of that mystery, I'm like, oh, okay, I get that. I get how that's connected now. Because it's just like a noir movie. There's just it's so dense with clues.
Yeah. I think that's the thing about any noir film, like looking back, it's a lot frequently hard to follow every little like deviation in the plot. So rewatching is always fun because you're like, oh yeah, that little bit, right, you know.
Yeah, and this movie was written by a white guy in the aughts. So yeah, there's some incel stuff. There's some gay panic stuff. There's the guy getting the girl after all the years who ignored him, and now she finally sees what he's worth and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That all sucks. So yeah, I'm gonna give this movie a B+.
Nice.
All right. So after that,
Well, I want to make a quick detour.
okay,
This comes from the Depths of Wikipedia Instagram page.
okay,
On God. Gospel of Jesus' Wife. The Gospel of Jesus' Wife is a papyrus fragment with Coptic text that includes the words, Jesus said to them, my wife. That's all that's included in it. It's just Jesus saying to them, my wife. Seems to imply that Jesus had a wife, but it's very funny.
I'm conflicted on the my wife joke. Because whenever someone goes, my wife, after someone says my wife, I'm like, okay, whatever. I get that we're ironically doing Borat, and it's come around to being funny again. But
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, whatever. But my manager at work, Jeremy, is so good at it. Like, I can't explain it. Like, someone will say my wife in a sentence, and I won't even clock it, but I will hear Jeremy. He does the perfect amount of the Borat accent, and he's always somehow 100 feet away from everybody. And I'll just hear off in the distance someone go, yeah, no, and I was talking to my wife and this and that. All right. It's so, oh, God. And it makes me mad because I'm like, God, I don't want to laugh at my wife, but,
All right.
So after Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
It was news time.
like it was news time?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Give me the news.
Oh, the mail.
Yeah.
Okay, well.
Oh, my bad.
was
Go
gonna
ahead.
set
Let's
it
start
up.
over.
So after this movie, after Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, like the ships in the night that me and you often are, I wrote it on the whiteboard, and I came back the next day, and you were gone, and you wrote In Bruges. I don't know if we ever mentioned this on the podcast, but the main reason we have this show is so that me and you can talk for an hour, because very often me and you are ships in the night, and we just don't see each other for like a week.
Yeah.
And I think it worked out well. I think, because, oh my God, you and I talk for hours. Sometimes we'll sit down and go, what movie should we watch? And we don't watch a movie because we talk about what movie we should watch for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think this worked out perfectly. I just went, fuck it, I'm going to watch this. And you went, ooh, I can nail this. And you picked In Bruges. And so we watched In Bruges.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mail time.
All right.
Oh, sorry, news. Here's the news.
In Bruges, a space station full of explorers crashes on an undiscovered planet. In the crash, the ship's hyperdrive fuel becomes unusable, stranding the crew on this dangerous planet. After a year on this planet, the team is ready to test their newly created hyperdrive. The space ranger responsible for the initial crash offers to test out the new hyperdrive himself. After the initial test fails, the space ranger lands back onto the planet and finds 4 years have passed down there, while mere minutes passed for him. He learns that a trip into hyperspace will cause time displacement, aging everyone on the planet much faster than himself. Determined to get his crew home, the Ranger continues these tests, ultimately losing 100 years in the process. Returning to the planet, he finds all his friends long dead, and this new generation of survivors no longer interested in returning to Earth. Alone, up against a new crew with a surprise visit by a rogue group of space pilots, Buzz Lightyear must use everything in him to make things right. 10 out of 10. Did you just look up the synopsis for that? Have you actually seen Buzz Lightyear?
I watched Buzz Lightyear before In Bruges, and I wanted to talk about it. I watched Lightyear. I went to go watch In Bruges.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, Chris already watched it.
So is the 10 out of 10 for Buzz Lightyear?
Yeah.
You like it that much?
I loved Lightyear.
Oh, okay.
I went to... I was like, oh, I got to watch In Bruges tonight, because Chris definitely has already watched both of these movies.
Yeah.
And surprise, you came home the next day and was like, get out of here. I got to watch 2 movies right now. This was like 12 hours ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to make some food or whatever first. And, oh, Lightyear's on Disney Plus. I'll just turn that on for a second and see how it is, because I hear it's not great. I ended up watching all of Lightyear, and I was like, oh, it was like 11:30. I'm like, oh, I got to go to bed, but I still have to watch In Bruges.
Yeah.
Chris, I loved Lightyear. It was great. People don't like it. I get it, because it's not like a good like Pixar movie.
Yeah.
And the most egregious part of it is the beginning is like a title card that says, in 1995, a boy named Andy got a Buzz Lightyear action figure. a character from his favorite movie. This is that movie. And it's like, okay, I didn't need that.
Yeah, that kind of gives like Blair Witch vibes or something.
Yeah, and then it starts playing, and I was like, oh, a lot of like the technology and this stuff, and the stuff they're using, and like even like the like fonts and stuff. I'm like, oh, this kind of feels like Alien, where it feels like a '95 sci-fi movie, but they don't really hold on to that. It gets more modern as it goes on. And I thought it was just a fun little sci-fi movie.
Awesome.
Like all that stuff you just read in there, isn't that insane to think about? That's the Buzz Lightyear movie.
Yeah, because I was like, is he doing like that specific scene in
Interstellar?
Interstellar?
Yeah, it's kind of like Interstellar. And yeah, he comes back. I'm going to ruin Lightyear for you and anyone who's listening. He comes back after however many years, and like he teams up with like the granddaughter of his friend that he crashed there with, and her group of friends, and the new colony doesn't want anything to do with hyperdrive, but also evil Emperor Zurg from, Toy Story showed up, and he's like kidnapping people and stuff like that. So they like, gotta stop him and get back to whatever. And he gets to Zurg's spaceship, and Zurg is just this big robotic like machine guy, and his helmet, he like the Zurg opens up, showing that there's a guy inside of it. And he looks like old Buzz Lightyear, because I don't know if you remember in Toy Story 2, they do the Star Wars joke where he goes, "No, I am your father." And in Lightyear, Buzz goes, "Dad?" And he goes, "Close. I'm you from the future." And it's like, what? And he goes, "Yeah, I created a new past. Because you know how you got off and met What's-Her-Face and you've been doing all this stuff? I didn't do any of that shit. I landed and then left again and went into the far, 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 far future, where they had more advanced technology, and this hyperdrive crystal that we have, I could use it with their technology to go back in time. So I came back here to help you so you can make all this right." And Buzz has learned all of his lessons and stuff now. He's like, "Oh no, if we do that, none of these people I just met will exist anymore, so we can't do that." And old Buzz is like, "Oh, well, now we gotta fight." And I'm like, this is fucking a Buzz Lightyear movie. This is awesome. I love it. And it was great. I think it's a 10 out of 10. If you don't like the Buzz Lightyear movie, you're wrong, and I hate you. Anyway, here's the thing for In Bruges.
I saw this tweet that was like, if you didn't want people to be mad about Buzz Lightyear sharing a gay kiss, you should have just had him fuck his boyfriend in the trailer. In Bruges. Hey, Braj, do you like comedies? You into a tasty drama? A fan of Irish accents? On the run after accidentally killing a kid while purposely killing a priest? Do you enjoy the music of Regina Spektor? You Grammy?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, then check out In Bruges. IDK, I think you'll dig it. Is it problematic? Totally. Is it the most 2008 thing you'll ever see? Uh-huh. But still, it's pretty slick. A primo flick. A gnar 90 minutes. A pretty bitchin' swell of a movie that'll leave you stoked off the lip like the aggro junkyard dog kook you are. Not an ankle slapper, but a real backdoor bomb. Won't leave you skagged by the rail. A real shaka. Clam dragger. 7 out of 10.
I think a surfer wrote that one.
Yeah, what the hell?
Just real quick table talk. I wrote down a real good flick, a real sick 90 minutes or whatever. Those rhymed, and I was just like, I'm gonna look up some surfer slang. I started writing it. If someone is a bodyboarder,
Yeah.
which means they lay down on the board the entire time while riding waves,
Yeah.
that's called a dick dragger. And if it's a lady, it's a clam dragger.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
that sucks, doesn't it?
Do you want to talk about In Bruges, your quote-unquote history with it?
Oh, what's my experience with In Bruges?
Yeah.
Just like your history with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, as long as I've known you, you're like, gotta watch this movie, watch this movie. And we watched it, like a year ago, I think, together?
Perhaps, yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I think it's really good. I think it goes perfectly with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. I was surprised when I watched it the other night. I was like, oh, I guess I forgot a lot of this movie. And like as it was going on, I was like remembering it. Hold on, I took down some notes.
Okay. I will say this is just my history real quick. It's just a movie I saw like right at the sweet spot of like, oh, Drive just happened. I just saw Donnie Darko, saw like A Clockwork Orange and stuff, and I was just like, oh, movies, I think it's like, usually when we give that little speech, it's easy to say that this is like and I mean no disrespect, but it's like, like entry level cinephile kind of thing where like when you first start thinking, man, movies rip, you're like, whoa, In Bruges, whoa, that kind of thing.
I think this movie, just like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, is like, this is a really good movie that I I mean, maybe it's just me, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about this movie. And I think it's great. It's
So you have your notes.
Yeah.
You want to save them for as we talk?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, let's get out of the way with the problematic stuff. Yeah, there's just some weird gay jokes and some things that border on being racist.
Yeah, there's like some fat phobia.
I mean, there's a character who's actually racist, which I think pays off with one of the characters being like, hey, how about this? Yeah. And then he's like, two manky hookers and a racist dwarf. I think I'm done for the night. That kind of thing.
They refer to little people as the M word just constantly in this movie. Yeah.
But specifically, there's the joke about the gun later on, where he says the thing about how he's like an Uzi. I'm not gonna kill 10 black teenagers in South Central Los Angeles. I want a normal gun for a normal person. And it's like, okay, well, what do you mean by normal?
It's a little better because it's the bad guy. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm not supposed to like you. So this tracks.
Yeah. And there's just a couple of lines like that, like the one gay beer for my gay friend and one normal beer for me because I'm normal. And some of it, it's one of those things where, like, again, it's of the time. Like, that's when every time I say that line, I always feel like it could also just be from Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah. You're right.
Like, I could see, like, his roommate saying it, but calling Scott the gay one.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It does. You're right. It does feel straight out of that. It could.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, there's definitely some problematic stuff in here. Again, written by a white dude in the aughts.
Yes, I'd say this movie has the same strengths and weaknesses as Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the two leads. I love watching them do their stuff, and then also
I really like Mad Eye Moody. I've never really seen him in anything else other than Harry Potter and this.
Yeah.
He's really great. If anything, I think he carries the movie more than Colin Farrell. Like, I think of this as his movie more than I think of it as Colin's.
Absolutely, yeah.
Colin ends up being one of those protagonists that, like, he's in this situation because of his actions, but to a degree, I feel like Mad Eye Moody is the more of the one who's like, I don't know, it just seems like, I guess to a degree, it's just a movie with two protagonists is the most concise way to put it. But like, I don't know why, Mad Eye Moody is the one that I can't take my eyes off.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm gonna jump around to the end, I think, but I do love throughout the whole thing. It's just like, it turns out they're hiding out here. But the real reason they're in Bruges is because their boss loves Bruges and was like, it's just a fairy tale. It's just a fairy tale of a place, and I just want him to have something nice before you have to kill him.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that sucks on two counts. I don't want to kill my friend, and also he hates Bruges.
Yeah.
And I do love through the whole thing. He hates all of it, but Mad Eye Moody loves every bit of Bruges.
Yeah.
It's just right up his alley, and he's the one that ends up dying at the end. So it was for him.
Yeah.
He got this nice thing before he died instead of Colin Farrell. And you're right, there are two protagonists, but it kind of feels like Colin Farrell is the protagonist at the beginning. But when you think about it, no, the main character of this movie is Mad Eye Moody.
Because it almost feels like by the end of the story, I would say, we're jumping so far ahead, but I would say it's implied. I know it's implied like, oh, did I live or die? There's no way to tell. Either way, I didn't care. That kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. But that bitch lived. And if anything, like, I feel like his story starts now. Like, what does he do from here?
Yeah.
Right? You know what I mean?
Or are they in purgatory the whole time, Chris? Is Bruges purgatory?
But anyways, cold open. They're in Bruges. Colin Farrell's complaining about it. Mad Eye Moody wants to go to the top of the tower. Mr. Colin Farrell does not, and you get the line about the whole, like, Ken, I grew up in Dublin. If I'd grown up on a farm and was the R word, Bruges might impress me, but I didn't, so it doesn't.
Yeah, and I love not the R word, but I love right off the rip, this movie starts and they're having these conversations and they're witty and they're funny.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll even say in the very beginning, I totally skimmed over. I know it's just all flash and no whatever, but it's like, it's so like pulpy and just like, I like it. The thing where he's like, the literal first line of the movie is, after it was done, I threw the gun into the River Thames and washed my hands in a Burger King bathroom. Whatever.
Yeah, and there's that, and it moves on to the nice, like, still kind of pulpy conversation. But I can't remember what the first conversation they have is when they're just walking down the street. Mm-hmm. But I remember it's funny. It's funny, but this movie is shot so depressingly.
Yes,
like everything's very dark, like,
but also
color-wise.
It's a love letter to Bruges. Bruges looks nice. I think Bruges looks nice.
It's just like this movie looks dark and depressing, and like especially this first shot is like, I think, like handheld footage, so it's kind of shaky, and it just feels like a depressing movie, but throughout the whole thing, it is depressing, but it's extremely funny.
A dark comedy, if you will.
Yeah, it's like the blackest of comedies. I love it. Yeah.
But anyways, then there's the American family that are very fat, and he tells them not to go up there because there's windy stairs, and they're like, screw you, motherfucker, and chase him around. And then Mad Eye Moody comes down for the real punchline, which is him saying, guys, I wouldn't go up there. There's a bunch of windy stairs. He's like, screw you, motherfucker. All that stuff happens. Anyways.
Oh, sorry. I skipped past my notes. I said I was going to read. They're walking around at the beginning, and I'm like, I wrote down, oh, right, doesn't he kill a kid? Yeah. And then they go up to he's up by the top of the tower, and I was like, oh, right, doesn't he jump off this tower?
Yeah, well, okay, so let's talk about a couple of strengths. One, right off the bat, is I know it's not, objectively, but it feels like the movie lays out Bruges well. So many characters like walk past the same things and on the same sections of Bruges, like morning, afternoon, night. Like you get they reuse the same locations often, and it just feels like this one square block of Bruges where everything's happening, and I like that sense of feeling oriented to the space.
Would you say, Chris, that Bruges is also one of the protagonists of this movie?
And also, one thing that is also worth noting is at the top, Mad Eye Moody kind of foreshadows, in a sense, by doing the gun hand to Colin Farrell going...
Yeah, I love it's like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, but less complex.
Yeah.
More like, I hate how we reference this movie every time something at the beginning is connected to the end.
Yeah.
It's almost like Magnolia.
Yeah.
Where there's so many threads in this movie that begin right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And all tie up in this big climax at the end. It's great.
So they're there. They're laying low because Colin Farrell was like on his first job that he had gotten through Mad Eye Moody, who was like a friend, was to kill a priest, killed a kid, and they're supposed to be laying low. I think one of the next things they do is go to a bar, and they're kind of having a conversation about that, where he's like, why are we laying low in Bruges, kind of a thing. You know, I hate Bruges, yada, yada, yada. And he's like, he's like, oh, who knows? Maybe we're in Bruges because we're on a job. It's kind of elaborate to be in Bruges, kind of a thing. That's kind of an elaborate thing for Harry to do for us, you know. And I think they end up back at the hotel. A lot of this is just them kind of hanging out and talking for the first like 15, 20 minutes. And Colin Farrell's going insane. And he talks Mad Eye Moody into going out by being like, why don't we have a drink or whatever? And he's like, no, we can't leave. Harry said to stay in because Harry's going to call or whatever. And he's like, what if we went out and had a look at all the old buildings and that? He's like, I bet they look even better at night, kind of a thing. So they end up out and about at night, and they're looking at that. I love when they go to that chapel, and Mad Eye Moody's going on that long thing about how he's like in that, casket.
This is later on, but I love this movie.
Oh, okay, my bad. But whatever. I'll talk about it now. He's like, there's supposed to be a vial of Jesus Christ's blood, and they say throughout the years that from time to time it is turned from powder into liquid, and then back into powder, and then every couple of years it'll turn back into liquid, kind of a thing. And he's like, you want to go up and have a look at it? And he's like, do we have to? And he's like, of course you don't fucking have to. You don't have to. It's only Jesus Christ's fucking blood. Of course you don't fucking have to.
So good.
Yeah. But anyways, they go out. I don't know where they go. They're looking around, but they end up...
This is the movie set.
Strolling. Yeah, they end up bumping into the movie set. Where Colin Farrell says they're filming...
Little people. He doesn't say that, but yeah.
And he ends up meeting a girl. They have a nice little back and forth or whatever, where he makes her smile because he's kind of talking neurotically and ends up mentioning that a lot of little people kill themselves, which is the first time, in my opinion, that the movie foreshadows that's what's on this character's mind. He's thinking about killing himself. That's why he keeps bringing up the dwarf thing. I'll jump ahead real quick and talk about how the night before he kills himself, he's out doing cocaine and drugs with the little person, and that's the thing that he tries to have like a one-on-one conversation where he's like, it's like a lot of dwarves, kill themselves, and he's like, do you ever think about that? And he's like, Jesus Christ, man, why would you ask me that?
He's like, what the fuck kind of conversation is this?
Yeah, exactly. And it was only on this viewing that I was like, I always noticed that was why he was bringing it up, because it was on his mind, but that specific interaction just hit me a little different. Like I was like, oh, he's asking him about it, not just because it's on his mind, but because he knows that about little people, and now he's hoping that he can talk to someone who also thinks about that,
Yeah.
But anyways, back to where we're at.
Yeah, never caught that. That's great. Yeah.
She drops the number or whatever for him to call her, and he's like, oh, so fucking cool.
Yeah.
They go back home or whatever, and Mad Eye Moody notices that there's I think Mad Eye Moody didn't even stick around this long. Anyways, he's back home, and there's the woman who owns the bed and breakfast gives him the note that Harry did
the
call.
telegram.
And he's like, first, why aren't you in when I fucking told you to be in? When I was gonna fucking call you. Second, why are you staying at a fucking hotel with a fucking without a fucking answering machine and not I have to leave a message with the fucking receptionist or whatever. And at the bottom there's the PS from Marie, and she's like, I own this with my husband. Thank you.
About the receptionist, it's great. And that's one of my notes I wrote down.
Yeah.
Like, that's so unbelievably funny.
Yeah, and yes, Colin Farrell comes home late. He's talking about how he's had so many beers and he's not even drunk, and he talks about how he has a date the next night. And Matt Moody's like, "That's great, whatever." You know, they wake up in the morning, they have breakfast.
I love that. No, that's a good little scene when he comes in and he turns the light on, and
so
Matt Moody's already asleep. He's like, "Turn the fucking light on." He's like, "Oops, sorry," and he's just being loud the entire time. And he's brushing his teeth. He's like, "Got a date tomorrow."
Yeah. He's like, "I had 6 beers and 7 pints." No wait. 7 beers and 6 pints, and I'm not even pissed, you know. And Matt Moody wants nothing to do with it because he's all hyped up about the girl. He's like, I got a date with a girl. Anyways, in the morning they have breakfast. Mad Eye tells him like, hey, we cannot go out tonight. Like, we have to stay in. Harry called, and he's like, ooh, except both of us don't have to stay in. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, I did already say that I had a date with a girl, which I did already say, and you have to admit, I did already say that, you know. And Mad Eye Moody concedes. He's like, all right, but this morning we're doing what we want to do. And this is a scene that I'm very conflicted about because I think this interaction that happens next is very funny, but then they ruin it with like the edgelordy black comedy thing. He says, I have a feeling that it's going to involve a lot of culture. And Mad Eye Moody says, no, we'll find a nice balance between culture and fun. And Colin Farrell says, yeah, except I feel like the scale's going to tip ever so slightly in the favor of culture, which is pretty funny to me. And then he says the thing about how he's like a big fat black R-word girl opposite a dwarf on a teeter-totter or whatever.
It's bad.
Yeah.
I don't like listening to it.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time in this movie, like with the little person stuff, I was like, all right, that's not cool. But when he said that, I was like, go.
Yeah.
And they go see Jesus' blood.
Yeah, they go see Jesus' blood and do whatever they're going to do that day. And then Colin Farrell and before we even get there, they spend the day at the museum looking at the Bosch paintings. Bosch's crazy, you know, depictions of what people refer to as purgatory or hell or whatever you want, yada, 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 and all the crazy stuff. And again, you get more of what's on Colin Farrell's mind, where he talks to Mad Eye Moody about, like, do you believe in hell and heaven? And, you know, they talk about purgatory and how, like, if you're not really shit, you go there and stuff like that.
It's a good delivery from Mad Eye Moody when Colin Farrell's like, do you like believe in all that stuff or anything like that? And Mad Eye Moody's like, I don't know. And it's like, ooh, that's rough. That's the roughest answer you could have given. Instead of yes or no, it's just like, no, we're assassins. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. But anyways, and again, the Bosch thing ties into the idea of the purgatory thing that you were joking about earlier in the thing, and also something else that I caught on this one is that the little person also refers to the last scene they're shooting. That night that, like, the gunfight happens, he's like, yeah, it's supposed to be this thing where, like, it's a dream sequence, and, you know, someone wakes up and realizes that the demented little demon dwarf that they've been seeing is actually just a harmless little school kid. It's all a big Boschian nightmare.
Oh, fun.
Like the painting.
Also, I think we've passed it at this point, but it was in my notes. You get the scene of him killing the priest and the kid on accident.
Yeah.
Don't know how I did not remember this scene. Like I audibly gasped when you see, like, I wrote down in my notes, oh yeah, he shoots the hell out of that kid. Because I don't think I've ever seen it in a movie before, but he shoots the priest, and the priest goes, the little boy, and falls down, and it turns out on the other side of the priest was a little boy. And you see this little boy with a giant hole in the top of his head from getting shot in the face by Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
And I was like,
and then Mad Eye Moody runs in and rushes him out of there.
Holy fuck. That's like the gnarliest thing I've ever seen in a movie, probably.
Yeah. It is pretty gnarly. So anyways, he does go out on the date with Chloe. They have an alright date where she says, like, I steal from, like, tourists or whatever.
No, she tells me she's a drug dealer.
Yeah, drug dealer or whatever. And he's like, oh, that's cool because I kill people for a living. And she's like, oh, you know, yada, yada, yada. He's like, oh, mostly kids and priests or something like that, joking. And she's like, I don't see a priest kind of thing. And he's like, oh, no. And she's like, no, you look like you kill children more kind of a thing. That's whatever.
And it's like, it's like, okay, cool. You guys got it on the right foot. And you're into this dark humor. Yeah, for sure. And then she's like, no, you look like you just killed kids. And it's like, ooh, you don't know.
And she goes off and, you know, he's like, fucking Christ, over the guy next to him. And he's like, he turns to the prick and he says, what's fucking unbelievable or whatever. And the guy's like, what's unbelievable is all night your fucking girlfriend blowing cigarette smoke in my face. And he's like, it's the smoking section. He's like, yeah, but I don't have to die because of her fucking arrogance or whatever. And he goes, yeah, like the Vietnamese or something like that. He's like, what the fuck does that mean? He's like, the Vietnamese. He's like, saying it again, I ain't gonna make it any fucking clear. What the fuck are you talking about? The fucking Vietnamese or whatever. And he ends up punching that guy and also punching a girl who swings a bottle at him or whatever. And then he has to explain to Chloe afterwards, like,
I love earlier. I don't remember how the conversation comes up.
Oh,
but
Mad Eye Moody, yeah.
Mad Eye Moody says
having that conversation.
It's something about like hitting a woman or something.
Yeah.
He's like, she came at me with a bottle, and he's like, oh yeah, a bottle can kill you. You gotta knock out somebody who's coming at you with a bottle. And the girl in the restaurant comes at him with a bottle.
Yeah. Anyways, while this is all going on, Mad Eye Moody is home, gets a call from Harry, and I love this interaction or whatever.
Yeah.
Where he's like, hey, and Mad Eye Moody's like, yeah, we're both in, like, he asked. He's like, oh, Colin Farrell's there? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, well, send him out. And he's like, well, Harry's in the bathroom. And he's like, well, is he doing a wee or a poo? And he's like, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, go find out. And he like has to walk over there and like knock and whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, ask him to like go out or whatever. And he's like, where's he going to go out? And he's like, I don't know. I'll find like a bowling alley. He's like, find a bowling alley in Bruges or whatever. And sends him off. And, you know, Colin Farrell, like even, the Voldemort even asks him like, he's like, is he gone? And he has to get up and pretend to go to the door and make sure. And he's like, yeah, he's gone, Harry, whatever.
Is Ray Fiennes Voldemort?
Yeah. And one of the things I have to mention ever is there's a point where fucking he says something like, where were you guys yesterday or whatever? And he's like, oh, Harry, we were gone for half an hour. We went out and had dinner. He's like, where'd you guys go? And he's like, Pizza Hut. And he's like, was it good? And he's like, yeah, it was Pizza Hut. And that shit's very funny to me. But anyways, he asks him how, you know, the...
trip is going.
Yeah, how the trip is going, and he says that he doesn't know if it's Colin Farrell's thing. Harry blows his lid.
And you know his fucking thing.
Yeah, how can it not be his fucking thing?
It's a
with the
fucking fairy
fucking
tale.
swans and the fucking fairy tale kind of a thing. And then the Mad Eye Moody does a very nice thing where he like lays back on the bed and he tries to be very, like, very sentimental about how he's like, yeah, it's just in the beginning. There's all those like tourist shops and stuff like that. But then once we got past the big archways, you do remember the big archways? They had those when you came here, right? He's like, I know I'm dreaming, but or awake, but it feels like I'm dreaming and stuff. And Harry's like, yeah, that's nice. I wanted to make sure he had something nice before he died or whatever. And he's like, what? And he's like, write this number down. Tomorrow you're going to go see a guy named, you know, Yuri or whatever, and you're going to get a gun from him or something. And he's like, what are you talking about, Harry? He's like, you're going to kill him or whatever. That whole conversation. It is a nice, like, the other shoe falling kind of moment in the movie.
Yeah, no, I like it. The first, like, inclination of it is he's just like, oh, that's nice. I wanted him to have something nice.
Yeah.
He was always a good kid, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean, wasn't he? He's like, oh, he killed a kid.
Yeah.
If the buck doesn't stop with him, where does it stop,
Yeah.
Harry? And he's like, oh, Harry. What's his name? Ken. He's like, where does it stop, Ken? And he's like, okay, yeah, I guess I gotta kill Colin Farrell. Yeah.
Yeah. I do like when Mad Eye Moody gets kind of fed up because he's like, if the buck doesn't stop there, where does it stop, Ken? It's like, if the buck doesn't stop, he's like, it stops with me, Harry. It stops with me. But anyways, so yeah, next thing I know, the boyfriend shows up at the Chloe date and tries to rob him, takes the gun from him.
They're making out on the bed, and I go, hey, Chris likes this song. And then the boyfriend shows up.
Yeah. And takes the gun, and he's like, there's only fucking blanks in there, dummy, or whatever. And he's like, blanks, and he shoots him in the guy's eye, and he's like, I can't see. And he's like, of course you can't fucking see. I shot a blank in your eye kind of a thing. And they have the whole conversation about how he's like, you were going to rob me kind of a thing. And she's like, no, you're not. And he's like, oh, I knew it was too good to be true. A girl like you would never like a guy like me kind of a thing. Whatever. They go off to take the boyfriend to the hospital. He's poking around in her room and finds a bunch of drugs, a gun, and some bullets, which are... It's literally a suicide kit. He found exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
He found what he wanted.
And then Ken is drinking at the bar next to the little person.
Yeah.
He's going, are you American? He's like, don't hold it against me.
Yeah.
And I like it. He says it later.
I do like the interaction they have, whatever, where he's like, how's the movie going? And the guy's like, it's a trumped up bit of Euro trash, derivative, trite, this, that, and the other kind of thing. And there's a beat and Ken goes, like in a bad way? But anyways, he's having beers to the point that the, bartender's like, snickering at him, or he's like, is there a problem or whatever? And he's like, me? Problem? No. 4 pints in 20 minutes? No problem, Colin Farrell comes blazing in, high on coke, and he's like, if my heart stops, it might have something to do with the gram of coke in me. And he's like, you've got some coke? And he's like, yeah, but I thought you said it made you feel depressed the next day. Or he's like, yeah, but I don't really care right now, so let me have some kind of a thing. And Ken goes off to go do drugs in the bathroom, and I love that Colin Farrell notices the little person, and they have a little conversation where he's like, hey, I waved you the other day, and he's like, I was on a lot of horse tranquilizer the other day. Yeah. I wasn't waving at anybody, except maybe a horse. And they talk for a little while, and
I wasn't waving at anybody except for maybe a horse.
And they talk, and like they end up saying something. Oh yeah, it's the whole thing where that girl that he's with, he's like, oh, you got a pretty girlfriend, and she's like, oh, he's actually a prostitute or whatever, and she talks about how like, you know, she's from like Amsterdam or whatever, and he's like, oh yeah, Amsterdam's only known for weed and like, you know, prostitutes or whatever, and she's like, exactly, that's why I came to Bruges, I could get a better price for my pussy. And he's like looking at her like wide-eyed, like, what? You two are weird. And then as he's like, do you want to go do drugs with me or whatever, Mad-Eye Moody comes into frame behind him.
All wild-eyed, yeah.
So anyways, then they spend the night with, you know, prostitutes and cocaine. And
I don't know if this is where you're going. I assume it is. I don't love the monologue from the little person where he's going on about there's going to be a race war. Mm-hmm. He's like, what about the mixed people? I do love
Colin Farrell doing that the whole time where he's like, well, what about the Vietnamese? And he's like,
blacks,
the blacks, of course. And he's like, oh, I'll definitely fight with the blacks then. And he's like, you're not going to be able to choose a side.
And he's like, wait a minute. Do you mean that there's going to be a bunch of white little people versus a bunch of black little people? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, oh, that's messed up, man. I feel like you guys should have some kind of solidarity on that. And he's like, you don't know how much shit I've gotten from black little people.
Yeah.
And
such a classic white person take too.
Yeah. And I Colin Farrell's delivery on this is so good. He goes, you don't know how much crap I've gotten from little black people. And Colin Farrell goes, that is undeniably true.
Yeah. But yeah, I love immediately after that, Ken goes on the whole thing where he's like, in 1978, my black wife was killed by a white man. So where do I fit into your pretty little picture? There's a race war kind of thing. And he's like, I don't know, man. You're going to have to weigh up your options or whatever. He's like, two manky hookers and a racist dwarf. I think I'm done for the night. And leaves. Yeah. And Colin Farrell takes the drugs and also leaves after karate chopping the little person. She's like, yeah, no, because he's like, back off, shorty. He's like, you don't know karate. And then he chops her. Yeah. Anyways, Mad-Eye Moody gets up early in the morning to go get a gun from Yuri. Yuri keeps talking about the alcoves and stuff like that.
There's a lot of alcoves.
Yeah, he's like, do you use this word? Alcoves?
You like nooks and crannies? Oh,
he's like, yes,
better.
alcoves. He's like, oh, yes, nook and crannies. Perhaps this is a better word.
And I do love, jumping ahead again, but like when him and Voldemort are like chasing each other, but like they just like sit down for
friendly
a second.
sparring.
A nice little.
It's like Professor X and Magneto.
Yeah, and I love like they've just come to like, okay, I'm gonna kill you, and this is what happens, and they're just having that nice conversation because they've been friends forever.
Yeah,
and he's like, yeah, he was telling me about these alcoves. He told you about the alcoves too? Oh my god, that's nice. It's a nice little.
But anyways, he goes off and gets the gun. Colin Farrell wakes up. Excuse me. Unbeknownst to Ken, writes a will and testament, gives $200 to the pregnant woman who owns the bed and breakfast, and goes to the park to do the deed. Like I said, the audience and Mad-Eye Moody does not know this, but Mad-Eye Moody goes to the park to kill him because he finds out from the woman that that's where she's going because she tells him about the $200.
Yeah.
He hasn't seen the will and testament yet, but he knows that he gave away the money, yada, yada, yada.
I think this is such a nitpicky thing to correct you on, but the will and testament is Mad-Eye Moody's.
Oh, really?
Because he knows what's-his-face is going to come and kill him.
Okay.
And he just leaves a suicide note, Colin Farrell does.
Okay. Anyways, it's a very like, it's very kiss kiss bang bang. There's like that moment that's very much so like, what if the dude was about to kill himself and then at the same time he's about to kill him, kind of a thing, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like that whole
it's great.
situation.
It's great. It's a nice shot. I love it. Just him behind him and him with a gun to his head, and he stops him. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? He goes, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And like,
he's like, you were gonna kill me. He was like, you're gonna kill yourself. He's like, I'm fucking allowed to.
And I love just from there. They're like, all right, let's talk about this, and they sit down because it's like
at the play place. But
I like the tense like what's the word I'm looking for?
Atmosphere, or tone, or
like the balance of power between the two of them being like, well, I got you, and he's like, okay, well, I got you too, so let's just. It's a draw right now. Let's just sit down and talk about this.
And I love that after they talk about it, he's like, all right, give me the gun. And he's like, what? I need the gun. He's like, no, you got to give me the gun. You're suicidal.
Yeah, it's very funny and a very sad scene where he's crying. He's like, I killed a little boy. And he's like, yeah, but you killing yourself's not going to make that boy come back.
Yeah.
That's not going to fix anything. You can go on and
try to do something good.
Make sure the next little boy stays alive and gives him a bunch of money and puts him on a train.
Yeah. And then on the train, he bumps into the Canadian again. You hate the Canadian?
Yeah.
Do I hate the Canadian? Yeah, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah, I love it. He puts him on the train because he's like, Ray finds Voldemort's gonna come here and kill you, so you gotta go. And then the cops come and get him on the train. He's like, where are we going? He's like, back to Bruges. He's like, oh, perfect.
But anyways, yeah. I also forgot to mention that after the train thing happens, before that scene, Harry does call Mad Eye Moody again. They're on the payphone thing or whatever. And he's like, hey, you hear that? That's the sound of the train. I just put the boy on it or whatever, kind of a thing. And they get off the phone, and he starts slamming that phone into the receiver.
It's Christmas morning.
Yeah, it's Christmas morning, and his wife comes in, and he's like, Harry, it's an inanimate fucking object. And he's like, you're an inanimate fucking object.
I love later he's like, I'm sorry for calling you an inanimate object.
Yeah. Anyways, he's on his way to Bruges to go handle the whole situation. The Colin Farrell gets sent to jail because of the guy he shot the blank in the eyes of.
For beating up the guy. And then what's her face comes and bails him out. I don't think anything happens with the guy he shot in the eye.
Oh,
I don't think that's why he's in jail. I think he's in jail for beating up the Canadian.
Oh, okay.
And she bails him out.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, so they get bailed out or whatever. Mad Eye Moody and Mr. Voldemort meet up at like a pub after Voldemort has gotten the gun and said the awful thing to Yuri.
I do love when he's with Yuri, though, and he's like, what happened to your eye? To the other guy, and he's like, he's the guy that shot me with a blank. He's like, he shot you with a blank? He's like, oh, I was Rodman with a gun full of blanks. Yeah. He shot me in the eye. And he's like,
well, it sounds like it's your fault, really.
And he's like, I thought you wanted to kill him. He's like, I do, but if you rob someone with a blank gun and they take it from you and then they shoot it in your eye, that sounds like your fault. I'm on his side in this one.
Mad Eye Moody and Voldemort, have a conversation. Then they decide to go to the top of the bell tower. I should also mention something we glossed over in the beginning is when they're going to the top of the bell tower, Mad Eye Moody's like counting out some change. It's like $5 to get to the top, and he's like $4.90. And the guy, he's like, would you take $4.90? And he's like, entry's €4 or €5 or whatever. And he has to break a 50 or whatever. And he's like, happy in your work? And he's like, very happy or whatever. So anyways, when they're going to the top of the bell tower for Harry to kill Mad Eye Moody, they bump into that guy. And he's like, tower's closed. And Mad Eye Moody's like, I thought it was open till 10. He was like, yes, but an American had a heart attack on it yesterday, so tower's closed early today. And Harry's like, we're only going to be a minute or whatever. And then he starts poking the guy in the head. And he's like, tower is closed. Get it, British man? Or whatever the hell he says to him. And then Harry kills him. They go to the top of the tower. And Harry's like, yeah, I'm going to have to kill you, kind of a thing. And Mad Eye Moody's like, after everything you've done for me, like, we're not going to do like a shootout kind of a thing. You could just kill me. Like, I'm thankful for you and I love you or whatever. And he's like, well, I can't fucking kill you now, kind of a thing. But he does still end up shooting him in the leg.
I love that. It's played like what I said earlier about Colin Farrell, Voldemort's delivery, and this is perfect. He's like, well, I can't do it now after you said all that nice shit. And then he shoots him in the leg. He's like, well, you still let him go. I had to do something. Then
Chloe and Colin Farrell are just, frolicking to the streets of Bruges, and Eric, the man who's been blinded by the blank, sees them. Also, earlier had seen Harry and Mad Eye Moody go up the tower, so he starts running up the tower, and he's like, Mr. Voldemort, it is me. I just saw the guy you're trying to kill. He's here in Bruges. And then
right before this, they saw the little person dressed like a schoolboy. Go on.
Oh yeah, and he gave the whole thing about how we're about to go shoot the nightmare scene. Like, you should come by. It should actually be pretty fun tonight. Bashi and nightmare, yada yada yada. Yeah, Eric goes to the thing or whatever, and for some reason, I don't know why. Is it because like he perceives that Mad Eye Moody lied to him? Is that why he immediately switches and decides to shoot Mad Eye Moody?
Yes, he thinks. Okay. Because Mad Eye Moody doesn't know he's back, but he thinks he lied to him about putting him on a train, and he's just been hiding him there the whole time.
Mad Eye Moody gets shot. He's very obviously dying. He's been shot in the neck, and this is one of my favorite scenes of the movie. I love the Dubliners, whatever Dubliners, how you say the fucking band. I saw her first.
Yeah.
As he like crawls painstakingly, just oozing blood up the thing. And I love that, like, before he jumps off to make sure nobody's standing there, he drops a couple of coins so people move out of the way or whatever. And it's all foggy, he can't actually see the bottom, and he straightens his tie before he jumps, and he does jump and then hits the thing. And it's probably the second worst thing I've ever seen in a movie. It just hits and there's just blood, and it's just like
he's just in pieces on the ground.
It's disgusting.
And like, was his plan to make a scene so Colin Farrell was aware and could see Harry coming out and then get a running head start? Or was he like, well, I'll probably just die in a minute after I fall and I can talk to Colin Farrell? Because that's what happens.
I think it was, and I also think it's definitely like a jump the shark moment. But a little bit,
it works really well.
Because he comes over and he's like, oh my God, Ken, what the fuck kind of a thing. He's like, Harry's here, take my gun. He's like, he looks at the gun, it's all smashed up, and he's like, where's my gun again? Where's my gun? And stuff like that. Then he sees Harry, and they have a small chase that leads them back to the bed and breakfast.
Love this scene.
Yeah, Colin gets his gun, but the woman who owns the bed and breakfast won't let Harry up, kind of a thing, and Harry won't actually push past her because she's pregnant, and again, the whole principles thing. Then they decide to have this thing where he's like, all right, listen, I'm going to jump out that window into the river if I can swim across. You can shoot me from there, but if I can swim across, that kind of a thing, like, let's take it out of the hotel, and they agree to it. He's like, all right, 1, 2, 3, go.
I love he's just like, where's it? Do I go right or left? He goes, you go fucking right. You can see it out the window, man. He's like, sorry, I haven't been here in a long time.
Yeah. But yeah, I love when he's like, we go 1, 2, 3, go, kind of a thing. And then he sit in silence for like 10 seconds of the movie. And he's like, well, who says it? You fucking say it. I was like, okay, 1, 2, 3, go. And they go. And, it leads to a big chase. He immediately gets shot when he jumps out. Luckily, in the river, there's like a boat going by, but he still gets shot after saying, like, there's no way he makes that shot from here.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and they eventually wander into the nightmare scene that's being shot in the movie, and there's all these crazy people with, like, mouse heads and stuff like that.
Oh, also, I forget just something really quick. Earlier when he's talking to Mad-Eye Moody, Harry is... He's like, yeah, he tried to kill himself, and I stopped him. He's like, you stopped him? I mean, well, it makes sense that he would do that. And he goes, really? He goes, oh, yeah. If I killed a kid, I wouldn't think twice. Anyway, they run into the night.
Oh, yeah, that is pretty prominent. Also, there's a pretty funny joke or whatever where he was like, geez, the boy was suicidal or whatever. He's like, so what? He's suicidal. I'm suicidal. You're suicidal. Everybody's fucking suicidal. And he's like, somehow it comes up the topic of, like, you didn't kill him kind of a thing. He's like, well, he was going to kill himself kind of a thing. He's like, but I stopped him. He's like, but you stopped him. He's like, this just keeps getting fucking better. He's like, I needed you to kill him, and you stopped him from killing ourselves. It would have solved your problem. It would have solved my problem.
It would have solved his problem.
Yeah.
Anyway, the nightmare scene.
Yeah, and long story short, Harry ends up shooting Colin Farrell the same way that the priest was shot, in the sense that behind Colin Farrell was actually a child. And we should also mention that when he gets the gun off of Yuri earlier, he specifically gets the dum-dums, the exploding bullets.
Yeah.
Yuri's like, would you like some of these dum-dums? He's like, I know I shouldn't, but I'll take a couple of those.
Yeah, because they pop heads or whatever.
Yeah, they pop heads or whatever. And so afterwards, Colin Farrell's like dying, or he's like, the little boy or whatever. And, Colin falls. Harry sees
that he shot
the little person who's dressed like a schoolboy, thinks it's a kid, and he's like, yeah, the little boy, and immediately goes to put a gun in his mouth, and Colin's like trying to like be like, no, it's a thing, whatever, and he blows his brains out, kind of a thing. And the movie ends with a monologue, like in the beginning with the whole like In Bruges thing. It's like some snow falling, and he's getting carted into the back of like the ambulance, or whatever, and he's like, yeah, he's like, somewhere in London, there's a little. There's a Christmas tree with presents under it, but no little boy to open them, kind of a thing. And he talks about, basically just that thing where he's like, and in the end, I didn't know if I was going to live or die, but it didn't really matter, kind of a thing,
Yeah, I like in part of that monologue, he talks about the Christmas presents not being open. He goes, my plan was to go to that mother and tell her what happened, and whether she wanted to kill me or call the police, I was going to let her do whatever she wanted, but no, I might live or die, and I don't care. Credits. I like this movie, Chris. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I think strengths are that it's very funny, for sure. Carried on the back of Colin Farrell, Voldemort, and Mad-Eye Moody, and even to a degree, like the lesser characters are enjoyable. Not necessarily carrying the film, but yeah, I love Marie. I love Chloe. Eric is fun. Yuri is fun. The little person, I can't remember his name offhand. But he's also fun. The prostitute that he hangs out with has that one little funny line. Yeah, they're all fun. Even the bartender with the whole like, me problem? No, 4 beers in 20 minutes, no problem. But anyways,
and the guy at the toll booth taking the money, and just everybody's great.
Yeah, and it just reminds me of like, again, like the Not Your Dad's kind of thing. Like it's in the vein of like something like a Pulp Fiction. It's like a crime thing where like they're doing the edgy twist on it where it's modern, but like this one just seems to have like a little more of an emotional lean than most do. Because primarily it's the story of Mad-Eye Moody and Colin Farrell, and learning to forgive yourself or forgive others, and what can you forgive, and people make mistakes and bouncing back from that, and yada yada yada. It's a good movie. Again, like I said, bang bang, gotta give it a B, 2 B's, bang bang.
Yeah, I think this movie's great. I keep saying it fits really well with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Yeah, because also that's one of the things we've had to mention in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. It's a little corny, but towards the tail end, Val Kilmer says to Robert Downey Jr., he's like, "Hey, also stop stealing shit. You're not a punk."
Yeah, I think even though it fits perfectly with Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Yeah, I think like the biggest strength of this movie for me is I don't think I can think of another movie that's like this movie.
Yeah.
I think this thing is entirely its own, for better or for worse.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's really. I again, just like Trainspotting and everything else you've shown me, I'm really glad. I'm really glad you sat me down and made me watch this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a B.
Yeah.
So Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, a B. In Bruges, a B.
Bang Bang.
Lightyear, A+.
That's that. Mattress Man. If you need more soup, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or go to our website, eatingsoupalone.com. And until next time,